Thank you for staying with us. Let's move to this now. September is International Deaf Awareness, which is aimed at discussing ways of addressing challenges facing deaf people. Here in South Africa, the country has made some strides in really ensuring equal rights for deaf people. Last year, the National Assembly approved South African Sign Language as the 12th official language in the country. To discuss how the institutions of higher learning are catering for deaf community, I am joined by Dr. Kgadi Mathabathe, who's the Director of Student Affairs at the University of Pretoria. Dr. Mathabathe, a pleasure to have you on the program this evening. Firstly, what specific initiatives has the University of Pretoria, for instance, implemented to really support deaf students or people who are hard of hearing?
I can start by mentioning some of the initiatives that we tried, such as FM systems, for example, which we have on loan for students. And these are connected to a microphone that a lecturer could have during a lecture, and to earphones that a student with hearing challenges could then use. I mean, they could literally, that transmits into these earphones, and they could hear, they could help the student, that radio signal then goes. Another thing is around, sensitivity and awareness around stuff. Simple things such as making lecturers aware to, enunciate their words, especially for students who rely heavily on lip reading, just to mention a few.
Maybe to take this conversation further as well, how is the university ensuring that resources such as sign language interpreters, which you've mentioned, are available, but also accessible for deaf students during lectures and exams? How does this look, especially in the lecture hall?
Look, we are not there yet, but this is something that is definitely something that needs to be addressed. Because it doesn't, this is not something you can just solve with one interpreter, because we know that also with interpretation, there's fatigue involved. So you need a team of people who can coordinate. But there are plans underway, especially after the sign language has been recognized as one of the official languages, that we need to invest in these resources in terms of interpreters to make sure that classroom environments are accessible for students.
So you're quite right. With the recent recognition of South African Sign Language as an official language as well, maybe let's ask, how is the university then planning to integrate South African Sign Language into its curriculum for both deaf and hard of hearing students?
As I said, this is something that I think, and I will start by saying, for example, that we haven't seen an increase, of students who declare this form of disability coming into higher education. And I think that's also the first step that we intend to embark on, being intentional in our recruitment strategies. And having now those students enter higher education, we then plan to make sure that, for example, we can embed this in the curriculum. We can have a fundamental, module on sign language, not only just, especially for students who are enrolled in service programs, so that we also contribute towards having students who can communicate and with the students who are having hearing challenges. So plans are underway to really be intentional, to fund and to recruit and to work with basic education, first to get these students into higher education, because we've seen a trend of a lot of these students not even entering higher education spaces as they need to, hence not a lot of work done already in terms of having this kind of support in place.
I want to make sure that I didn't miss a point that you made, especially regarding the steps being taken by your university in really educating the faculty and staff about the needs of deaf students and the importance of inclusivity as well. What are you doing in this regard?
As I said, I think it's really, for us, it's a, where we have, a lot of control is around issues of, prior and early identification. So for instance, with our registration, especially of first years, we always invite students to declare their special needs. And then we register them on our database with our disability unit. Once that has been done, then we are aware who is in our environment. But another thing is, which is good, is really training. And as I said, the awareness and the sensitivity training, and not just for staff, but also for students who, they do not have challenges with hearing, because you also want to create those conducive environments where these students are not, standing out, but they're able to also socially integrate seamlessly into higher education.
Yeah. Let's move to this next point as well, where we discuss the ways that the university engages with the local deaf community. You've already started alluding to this point. Let's get an understanding of how you better want to understand their challenges and how the university plans to address them in your engagement as well. What have you found? What kind of feedback have you received so far?
So far, I think we have, as I said, this is something that really, for me, is something that we need to start prioritizing. I'll tell you, for example, where we have now received a lot of funding to start intentionally recruiting and funding students with disability. So the first step for us, which is priority, is starting to strengthen that relationship with Deaf South Africa, so that we can get into the schools, especially in special needs schools, and start, and as I said, the first thing is to spark that interest and of students with these challenges to really aspire to enter higher education, and to show them that there's support in place. And so our plan really is to really start engaging with these environments to better understand where we are in terms of preparedness to host and support students with these challenges and special needs.
You mentioned organizations like Deaf South Africa. Maybe let's expand on that. Can you describe the kind of support services that are available to deaf students, such as counseling or academic assistance, and how these services are tailored to meet their needs or their specific needs?
Look, right now, we have counseling services, especially with mental health on the rise. And that, for us, is something that has been designed for all students. And I think the most important thing that we would like to embark on going forward is also provide interpreters in these spaces, and also make sure that we raise awareness also around in these spaces, so that the simple thing that I said, of enunciating for those who rely on lip reading, and simple things such as in cases of emergency where an alarm will go off. There we need to use a mixture of alert systems like visual aids, so that these students are really not left behind, so that whatever provisioning or psychosocial support we provide at the University of Pretoria, we always work closely with the disability unit, and they help us to test out the readiness and the accessibility of those initiatives before we roll them out. So similarly with deaf students, we would like to really engage with these students and understand how the system, especially the support system, to what extent is it accessible, to what extent is it relevant to their needs, to meeting their needs.
Going back to the theme of getting feedback, how does the university gather feedback from deaf students regarding their experiences, and how is this feedback used to then improve the services that they get?
Yeah, luckily we have student societies, and we have student societies, a student society that works closely with a disability unit, and it's really made up and led by students with special needs. So they are on the ground, and they work together with the disability unit. I work with the disability unit. So any challenges that students have in the university, they have those challenges to bring forward directly to management, their experiences in the classrooms, their experiences on campus. And we also do a number of periodically surveys with our students with special needs to kind of measure where we are as an institution in terms of catering for everyone. And this data is used to inform our planning in terms of resources and maybe even evaluating some of the practices on campus.
As we wind down our conversation, are there any notable partnerships with organizations who are focused on deaf education or advocacy that the university itself is involved with to really enhance your support for the deaf community there?
As of, I mean, currently no, and I think as I, mentioned that the challenge has really been that we don't see students with, challenges with hearing entering higher education. But as a university, we really want to be proactive, and we want to start identifying all those organizations, as I said, DFSA, but we've also been fortunate in that we work also with the MasterCard Foundation that has been very intentional when they signed the agreement with the University of Pretoria to say a certain quota of the bursaries and scholarships should specifically be towards students with disability. And I must say, a lot of the universities across Africa that are partners, the MasterCard Foundation partners, have come to the University of Pretoria for benchmarking. So we really now have to put our foot forward and identify who is in this environment, and then make sure that we form those strong partnerships, because that will also help towards our recruitment, because these are the organizations and NGOs that would help us where to look and what to do within the basic education to make sure that we broaden access for these students into higher education.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kgadi Mathabathe, really sharing her insights, or invaluable insights on the role of higher education in really supporting the deaf community during this International Deaf Awareness Month.